The Ukrainian Defense Forces are successfully conducting counteroffensive operations in the Dobrapilya area. Ukrainian defenders have advanced 3 to 7 kilometers into enemy defenses and liberated 7 settlements. The corresponding information was announced by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky. Ukrainian soldiers also cleared 9 settlements of occupier sabotage and reconnaissance groups. Syrsky recalled that Ukrainian forces have regained control of 7 settlements, while 9 more have been cleared of Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. In total, 160 square kilometers have been liberated, and 171 square kilometers cleared of enemy SRGs. According to him, Russian losses in manpower amount to 2,456, of which 1,322 are irrecoverable. The exchange fund for bringing Ukrainian defenders back from Russian captivity has been significantly replenished, the commander-in-chief added. Russian forces have also lost 817 units of weapons and military equipment, including 12 tanks, 37 armored combat vehicles, 162 artillery systems, 5 multiple launch rocket systems, 382 vehicles, 58 motorcycles, 1 piece of special equipment, and 160 UAVs. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also spoke about the Ukrainian army's counteroffensive in Donetsk region. The head of state reported that the Ukrainian armed forces had thwarted the enemy's plans to launch a full-scale offensive in the area of Pokrovsk and Dobrapilya. Right now, we are carrying out one of our counteroffensive operations. Our guys are doing great, in the Donetsk sector, near Pokrovsk and Dobrapilya. The fighting is intense, but we managed to inflict significant losses on the Russians. In fact, our forces have deprived the occupiers of the ability to conduct the full-scale offensive operation they had long planned and counted on, Zelensky said. He added that while in the Donetsk region, he presented state awards, specifically for battlefield successes, to some of Ukraine's best soldiers who had distinguished themselves in recent weeks.
Ukrainian military analyst Ivan Stupak said there is no distinct spring-summer offensive and that Russia's strategic aims are vague. The Russian army has been advancing non-stop since October 2023. Without clear plans, the Kremlin can call any outcome a victory. You can always present the results you achieved as the original plan, Stupak told the Moscow Times. According to the US-based Institute for the Study of War, Russia has gained about 2,346 square kilometers and 130 settlements since March the 1st, roughly a third less than the Kremlin claimed. Around Kupiansk, satellite imagery and open-source data suggest Moscow controls only 6.3% of the city's built-up areas. On the ground, Moscow failed to capture a single major Ukrainian city this summer. The only clear success came in Chasiv Yar, a small but strategic Donetsk region town where months of fighting left much of the settlement in ruins. Elsewhere, Russian advances have stalled or been rolled back. Russian troops reached the outskirts of Pokrovsk, a Ukrainian stronghold in Donetsk, but failed to secure control. In August, Russian units made a swift advance near Dobrapilya, northeast of Pokrovsk, but Ukrainian forces have since regained some ground in a counter-offensive. Stupak, citing military sources, said Kyiv is now trying to trim the salient around Dobrapilya. The process is slow and costly, but Ukraine so far retains the initiative in this localized operation. In Kupiansk, which Ukrainian forces liberated from Russian occupation in late 2022, more than a year of grinding combat has yet to yield a breakthrough. Gerasimov's claim that half the city is under Russian control has not been confirmed by Ukrainian OSINT projects and has even drawn skepticism from some pro-Russian bloggers. The pro-Russian Telegram channel Anatoly Radov citing Russian soldiers, reported that a significant part of the area around Kupiansk is a grey zone where small groups of soldiers move through the forests rather than a consolidated occupation. They are slowly pushing through our defenses. We are short on manpower. Some units are down to 14% of their strength. A Ukrainian retreat is inevitable, but not on the scale the Kremlin wants, Ukrainian expert Stupak said. Russia exploits Ukraine's manpower shortage by sending small groups to slip through Kiev's positions and then bring in reinforcements to seize ground, Stupak said. The Russian Defense Ministry has released footage of soldiers planting flags in contested areas of Kupiansk, presenting them as evidence of conquests. But critics, including pro-Russian bloggers, say these are often symbolic photo opportunities rather than proof of lasting control. The news about the liberation of half of Kupiansk is doubly sensational, considering that it goes into the report to the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, wrote Russian military correspondent Yuri Kotenok, referring to Putin. Now it remains to be seen where this came from and who, in fact, was the author or co-author of this presentation in the General Staff. They allege that commanders are sending ill-prepared troops on suicidal missions to produce images that match official statements. This is outright betrayal. Don't the people at the top understand this is the end of the assault troops, our guys? It's a one-way mission. The Telegram channel Yasino Vataya, Donbass on the front line, wrote in response to Gerasimov's statements and the Defense Ministry's video from Kupiansk. The human toll of Russia's offensive is staggering. Chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, stated that the Russian army is advancing in virtually all directions in Ukraine. He cited the fiercest fighting near Pokrovsk and assured that Moscow is making progress in the eastern Donetsk region, as well as in the Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk and Kharkiv regions. However, these military reports are merely empty words for the Kremlin, Reuters reports. The fiercest fighting is taking place in the Krasnomaysk direction, where the enemy is unsuccessfully trying to stop our advance, Gerasimov said, using the Soviet name for Pokrovsk. He also claims that the Ukrainian armed forces are deploying their most combat-ready units to the area, which helps the Russians advance in other areas of the front. However, his statements contrast sharply with the Ukrainian side's data. President Volodymyr Zelensky, in an interview with Sky News, emphasized that the last 3 Russian offensives had failed, and the Ukrainian armed forces expect 2 more attack attempts. Ukrainian troops reported repelling attacks near Pokrovsk, and deep state analysts recorded Ukrainian armed forces' successes in a neighboring city. At the same time, a representative of the Ukrainian unit in the Kupiansk direction stated that the Russians' attempt to advance ended in numerous captures. So Russian military leaders continue to mislead the public and Vladimir Putin by reporting fabricated victories. Analysts say it shows a clear gap between Moscow's claim and the actual war situation. Despite years of bloody fighting, Russian advances have stalled and brought devastating losses. Ukrainian officials believe Russia's claims of creating security zones in Sumy and Kharkiv are a smokescreen. They argue these statements try to hide the collapse of Moscow's offensives, which ended with staggering casualties. Recently, General Valery Gerasimov became a laughingstock after showing a map of supposed territorial gains. Analysts quickly noted it did not match battlefield reality. The map included grey zones and even areas still under Ukrainian control. Military analyst Dmitry Dates compared Gerasimov's map to Ukrainian monitoring group Deep State. He revealed that areas briefly entered by Russian saboteurs were labeled as occupied, even though Ukrainian forces swiftly retook them. Russian troops claimed control of an area near Dobropilya, but Ukraine's Dnipro group said its forces pushed them back to their starting positions. Some Russian units were even encircled during the counter-attack. Ukrainian officials point out that this is not the first time Gerasimov has been caught spreading false reports. They call his updates a classic example of propaganda meant to mislead both the Kremlin and Russian society about the true state of the war.